Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. I am Lillymu 961, and today I will be reviewing the third installment of Alyson Noël's Immortals series entitled Shadowland. If you have not seen my previous reviews of this series, then I recommend you check out the links in the description and watch those first. There will be some minor spoilers to the first and second book in this series within this review, so if you haven't read those books, you may want to steer clear of this review until you do. But if you don't care about spoilers and just want to listen to me rant, well, you are in for a treat today. Yeah, let's hit it. Shadowland takes place shortly after the events of Blue Moon, in which Damon is cured from the effects of the contaminated elixir Roman, yet another rogue immortal, poisoned. However, while Ever was able to save Damon, she inadvertently placed a curse on him, a curse where something as simple as holding hands could result in his untimely death. And when an immortal dies, their soul is condemned to the Shadowland, an eternal abyss of darkness. So basically the Shadow Realm from Yu-Gi-Oh! If you just want a point of reference. Desperate to fix this problem as quickly as possible, Ever begins to delve into magic and comes up empty until she meets Jude, the love triangle character nobody wanted. Meanwhile, Roman is plotting yet another scheme to torment our woefully misguided lovebirds off-screen. Now that you guys have a spoiler-free version of the summary, let us get into the pros and cons of this story. Be warned, there may be some minor spoilers in what I'm going to talk about, but it shouldn't be anything too bad in case you actually want to read this book. The first thing about this book that really stands out to me is that the last couple chapters are really well done. The conflict that is presented from earlier on in the story through some of Haven's dialogue and Roman's taunting presents itself again in a way you wouldn't expect it to. It's a masterful plot twist that I honestly did not see coming the first time I read the book as a teenager. And Ever's emotional turmoil during the fiasco that comes about and in the aftermath of the situation, it's really good. I would say it's perfection. It's easily the best part of this book. Another thing that is pretty good about this book is that the general writing style is still consistent. It's still a pretty fast-paced book in terms of just the general flow. There are some characters that were introduced in the last book, Rami and Rain. They provide some good humor at times, which is always nice in a, more drama-oriented story. And when Damon and Ever do manage to have a legitimately sweet moment, it's sweet. And that's pretty much all of the good stuff I have to say about this book. So, yeah, ranting time now. Oh, wait, hi there. Yeah, past me was, she kind of forgot she had one more good thing to say, so let's say that real quick. Roman, oh my gosh, Roman steals the show whenever he's at the forefront of the plot. He's a fun sort of villain. To put it in anime terms, he vaguely reminds me of Izai Orihara from Durarara, mainly because Roman approaches everything in a very humorous way, and it's obvious that he's really only out to enjoy his revenge as thoroughly as possible. Despite his generally vindictive nature, he's actually probably the most honest character in this entire series. What you see is what you get with him, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty, because some characters like Haven, well, we won't be talking about her much in this book, but oh yeah, that's another good thing. She's not really in this book a whole lot until the very, very end. So, yay! Yeah, so this is a short list of good things, but it's pretty much all I could think of because, again, time to rant. So, where to start? I suppose the best place to begin is actually with the story's pacing. I said earlier that the general writing style is still good and that the general flow is still kind of fast, so you can sort of breeze through it quickly, but the problem is that the actual pacing of the events of the story are kinda, let's just say that this book meanders for a long time and focuses primarily on Damon and Ever trying to move around the whole "if we kiss for too long, Damon will die" thing. This plot point in general is difficult to take seriously on any level, especially since the relationship between these two characters didn't have much of a leg to stand on before this madness took over. And when you take a step back and look at them with a very critical eye, it's easy to see that Damon and Ever don't really fit together as people, which is a problem when they're the main romantic leads. Kind of not a good thing. Throughout this book, Damon continuously proves himself incapable of doing anything to prevent harm from coming to Ever in some form or fashion. Like the plot of this book, he just kind of meanders around doing nothing of substance, forcing Ever to figure out everything on her own. Not only that, but it becomes vastly apparent that he makes decisions that cause harm to her without really taking her feelings into consideration. Even when she makes those feelings perfectly clear, he will just be like, nah, I'm gonna do what I want to do because I can. Damon, just... yeah. And speaking of Damon, another huge problem is that Ever is just too forgiving towards Damon. Small spoiler here, but within the early chapters of the book, well, I wouldn't say early chapters, it's more like you're on page 100, so you've already gone through a lot of pages of just kind of nothing. But anyway, within the early part of the book, I should say, Ever learns that when Damon made her immortal, he basically condemned her soul, and she just shrugs it off and says, in the end, all I want is to be with him. It's the only way my life feels complete. Girl, if you don't sit your fast behind down somewhere and get your priorities in order. Like, just no. No. No one would respond to this information the way Ever does. Absolutely no one. Are you kidding me? This is, oh my God. Like, have you lost your mind, child? Like, do I need to put you in an insane asylum? Because clearly you have gone absolutely crazy. I'm okay. But seriously though, he just told you that he accidentally condemned your soul. And you're not the least bit horrified. It's kind of ridiculous. She shows no anger about it whatsoever, not even like for a fraction of a second. She doesn't even bat an eyelash at it. She's just like, it's okay, he didn't know. And I'm like, you weren't so forgiving when he told you he had brought you back to life and left your family to die while you became an immortal with psychic powers that chipped away at your self-esteem and turned your life into a tailspin of negativity. I mean, in this universe, if you get punched in a specific chakra as an immortal, you die, and your soul is condemned to an abyss of darkness, a shadow realm. You know, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, we get it. You like anime, and it won't be long until you make a BTS reference again. We know the drill.
Get back to the review. Now.
And when Damon's like, oops, I didn't know that would happen, Ever's just like, oh, it's okay, babe. As long as I can be with you, it's all good. No. Honey, no. You need to drop his behind. Like, drop him on the curb. Ay. Just give me a minute. I need a moment to compose myself. So yeah, basic point of that ranting session, Ever kind of lost some brain cells. That's pretty much all that needs to be said about that. Let's move on to the next point. So I believe I mentioned already that the plot meanders on random junk, right? Well, I'm gonna mention it again. It spends a lot of time on Ever and Damon going out on dates, on Ever getting a job, and at that job we meet Jude. Hello, love triangle that nobody wanted. I'm not even joking. 2 books in, and now we're introducing the most overdone YA trope? Now? Seriously? The only thing this love triangle provides is another bullet point in the argument that Ever and Damon's relationship has a shaky foundation. Ever is not even interested in Jude, but everyone around her, including her boyfriend, tries to convince her that she is, and poor Ever once again ends up having to take initiative on her own, which leads to more problems since some people are incapable of doing anything of importance. Also, a good portion of the new age magic stuff is kind of meh to me. I don't really care for it, but the book is going to nail you over the head about it. While these elements contribute to the eventual plot, it doesn't really contribute to my personal enjoyment of it that much, so meh. And on a whole, anything that is remotely important to the story is brushed off until the last 5 chapters. Until the last 5 chapters. Let that sink in for a second. This book has 49 chapters and is over 300 pages long. The final 5 chapters take up 42 pages. Add in 1 or 2 elements introduced earlier in the book that contributes majorly to these last 5 chapters, the whole of this story could have been wrapped up fairly neatly within 50 pages, and if I'm generous, 100. This book waits until chapter 43 to have anything resembling a true plot. Only then does the book truly remember to integrate those seemingly minute details that were presented in such a blasé way that most people wouldn't pay attention to it in the first place. And those final 5 chapters are done so well. It's exceptional, to be frank, but I had to wade through over 200 pages of a slice-of-life romance story featuring the love triangle character that nobody wanted. Jude in general, he's not a bad guy, he's not a bad character, but in general, he's kind of forgettable. Like, I totally forgot he existed in this series until I reread this book. Again, he's not unlikable, but he's just kind of meh. Kind of like the plot of this entire book up until you get to chapter 43 when Roman becomes a present threat again. This brings me to my final major negative point. Not enough Roman. He's barely in this story even though he's the main obstacle for the protagonist. Shouldn't the antagonist, antagonize? He should have had a stronger presence in this book. I mean, Roman is the spice that brings the book to life. And seriously, this story needed spice all the way through. And it's unfortunate that it didn't have the spice it needed until the final 5 chapters. It's a shame that I only had a few really good things to say about this book. And that my overall opinion is just, well, meh. Shadowland begins the downfall of this series for me. While the writing is fluid enough for anyone to get through it somewhat quickly, the story has a very slow start and spends time on things that don't contribute to solving the problem Ever is dealing with. Instead, it simply creates more problems that Ever has to solve on her own, and quite frankly, I really can't stand to see her continuously kicked around like a wounded warhorse. I don't know what happened, but Shadowland marks a dramatic shift from the themes the first and second book presented. Now the plot is simply revolving around a really weak motivation to make progress in a weak relationship with a weak guy that no sane woman would ever consider spending their life with, let alone 10 minutes with. And if you're going to shift the tone like that, the story better have some spice, and clearly this one did not. While I still recommend the first 2 books of this series, book 3 is really lackluster. Not horrible, but it's heading down a dark path full of deadly flames. Next time, I will be reviewing Dark Flame, the 4th book in this series. Will the 4th book continue this downward spiral? Probably. But you won't find out for sure unless you click that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. And if you enjoy this type of content from me, be sure to leave a like and to let me know. If you've read this book, feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section. I would love to hear from you and see what you guys think. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.